Hello, welcome back. It's Jonathan. Now, we all know Trump is in the White House. What does that mean for you? What does that mean for me? What does that mean for the US? What does it mean for Australia? Now, if you know where we are in the cycle, you know that Trump, unfortunately for unlucky Trump, he's going to be deemed both the best and worst president of the US ever. Now, why do I say that? Well, it's got everything to do with Louise McWhirter's business cycle. And unfortunately for Trump, he's coming in towards the end of this business cycle. Now, his policies or his vision for America is to make it great again, unwind the federal bureaucracy in the country, implement further freedom of speech, tax cuts, etc. Make America great, make America one of the manufacturing hubs again of the world. Now, regardless what you believe, what you think of him, unfortunately for him, he is coming in at a wrong time. Now, I've shared this with you before, and I'm going to do it again because I just want you to see how this playbook works out, okay? So I'm just going to read this to you. So application, this is under the New York Stock Exchange, which is on page 9 if you've got her book. The practical application of this theory should bring economic independence to a greater number of people than ever before. It shows you how to analyze years in advance business conditions, crop wars, and other factors which have such an important effect upon security prices. Let me zoom in so you can see it all. It shows you when to get out of the market and when to get in, which are two of the most important things a trader must know. Everything needed for the study of this theory is contained in this book and can be practically applied. Again, you can go ahead and get yourself a copy of this, or should you wish, you can join our McWhirter Theory stock market forecasting course, okay? So let's continue on. The rise and fall of stock market prices come in definite intervals of time or cycles which follow the curve of the business volume and activity. The rise and fall of prices is governed by the law of supply and demand, which in turn is governed by a law in the universe, unknown or ignored, known as the law of action and reaction. Periods of business prosperity and depression are not man-made nor the result of chance. They come at regular intervals, the same as the seasons. And the same astronomical law which governs nature govern man and all of man's activities. When this fact is recognized, man will work in harmony with the forces of nature and not blindly against them. She goes on, it is not, however, an impossibility in the near future regarding an investment group. When man turns from disturbing political factors long enough to see that business volume and fluctuations of the stock market defy administrative control, they will begin to wonder what is the law behind it all. And this is the important bit right here for unfortunate Mr. Donald Trump. No administration can make depression and no administration can make prosperity. Business cycles occur on their own accord at regular intervals despite the government. However, this is for you and me. By acknowledging the law of nature behind this theory, administrative heads in the future can plan ahead for depressions and not be caught in the midst of prosperity by a changed business cycle and a financial panic. When this sort of preparedness takes place, the time will come when there are no depressions because man has already prepared for a rainy day and has more than enough to tide him over lean years. When the cycle changes and the business curve starts upward again, man will be able to invest again and, like the farmer, watch his seed grow. It is no longer necessary to be wiped out of the stock market. That is a sign of ignorance. So there we have it. Now, unfortunately for Mr. Donald Trump, and I will provide you a stock market chart very, very soon, which will highlight all this. He is coming in towards the end of the cycle. Now let's go above and take a look at this again. And I've done videos on this before. Actually, I will be honest with you. In the past, I have done a lot of educational based videos detailing a lot of these sort of theories and things like that. Some of it was coded because of the way that I was trying to address it. However, because I spend a lot more time in the back end and actually producing courses, on the front end, I'm more so just updating you on what's happening, more so than teaching you. So if you want to spend the time, you can get the book, they're free. Or if, like I said, you want to just join, we go through the book in this program and we take a look at it all. However, prices are down when the North Node moves through Aquarius, and prices are up when the North Node moves through Leo. Now, there are sensitive degrees around the zodiac here where the North Node moves through it, and we should be expecting a stock market collapse of some sort. to give you an idea on where we are now, we are roughly down here with the North Node, which means that we're coming towards the end where the business curve is at its lowest point. Now, as the business curve moves up and around to its peak and then down towards its trough, the economy and the stock market moves through different phases. As the node moves up, businesses go from struggling, depression, closing down, etc., which is around this time frame down here, to recovering, and then business activity is normal. And then businesses then start to boom. They're very profitable, okay, up into here. And then as we move down, profitability is still a thing, but we're moving towards standard business conditions, okay? It doesn't mean that we are going bankrupt or that businesses are starting to falter in this period. We're just moving back to normal business conditions. So businesses are overly prosperous around this time period, and then they go back into normal territory. As the curve moves lower, businesses start to struggle again as we move from normal to below normal, which means that there's a down force, there's a pulling pressure on business prosperity. Now, yes, I'm not saying that businesses aren't going to generate profit, but consider this a natural law where those who are in a weak position are going to struggle and those who are in a strong position are able to weather the storm. Just as she says down here, she says that, again, if we plan for this, if we have money, if we have the tools, we're able to weather the storm, okay? Those who don't weather the storm, don't have the ability to weather the storm, are generally the ones that go under. Basically, from Taurus down to Aquarius, they're all collapsing, okay? And just to put it into perspective, this is the time period around 2020. Around Gemini to Taurus was when 2020 occurred. And then the markets or the business curve points down and businesses continue to struggle. And that is why it would be one of Donald Trump's ambitions to make America great again, because we are coming into this end of this cycle where he's targeting small businesses. He's not really targeting big businesses, he's targeting small businesses and trying to show them that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Unfortunately for him, though, he's come in around here where he is going to see an economic collapse on his table. So what is a clue that you could use to know when we are nearing the top? Well, it is known as the winner's curse phase. Now let me explain the winner's curse phase for you. The winner's curse is a fascinating economic phenomenon first identified in 1971 by 3 Atlantic petroleum engineers who noticed oil companies consistently overpaying for drilling rights. Okay, consider this, overpaying. The concept describes situations where the winning bidder in an auction pays more than the item's true value, often due to emotional factors and incomplete information rather than cognitive limitations. So that is the winner's curse. Now, the winner's curse comes into it at a specific point, and I will show you that soon. The phenomenon occurs when bidders have different estimates of the item's value, with the most optimistic bidder typically winning but paying too much. Research shows that this effect is primarily driven by social factors and competitive dynamics rather than an inability to calculate proper values. Now, we're going to link it into this 18.6-year cycle. Now, Perplexity seems to think that it's an 18.6-year real estate cycle, whereas if we go back to the source, it's an 18.6-year business cycle. A lot of people talk about the real estate stuff because later on in time, it was linked in. The winner's curse refers specifically to the final 2 years of the boom phase. During this period, property prices reach unsustainable levels, lending standards become extremely loose, market psychology shifts from logic to groupthink, buyers entering the market face immediate value decline. This is the final phase of this, okay? So property prices reach unsustainable levels. If you're purchasing properties towards the end of the winner's curse phase, you'll then be looking at immediate declines in value because you've overpaid, okay? That's the point there. Lending standards become extremely loose. Okay, so in Australia we have, I can't remember the name of the company, but now there is only a 2% down payment required in Australia and then that company will become basically a guarantor. And it's not just one company, it's just one that I'm referencing, but there's lots of them out there. That company is going to become basically a guarantor of your bank loan, and that is an exact sign that we're in the winner's curse phase, because people are getting in, or they're basically group thinking into the real estate market at the end of the cycle, and lending standards have become extremely loose, or new lending elements or criteria are popping up, giving way for basically new businesses to operate in this space. Just want you to think about that, okay? For the average person, the winner's curse manifests as buyer's remorse, particularly in situations involving auctions or competitive bidding. This is especially relevant in real estate purchases during market peaks, initial public offering investments, and competitive bidding situation. The key to avoiding the winner's curse is recognizing that winning a highly competitive bid often means you've overestimated the true value. In real estate particularly, the winner's curse phase signals the worst possible time to make a purchase, as values typically decline significantly afterwards. All right, so where is the winner's curse phase? Well, actually, I spoke about this several times in videos, detailing one that I uploaded about 3 years ago, which ironically only has 253 views. This is why a lot of people think that I don't give them information, yet in fact I do. So the grand cycle, or the 18-year cycle, is broken down like this, where we have property values on one side, or stock market values on one side, or art values, or diamond values, or whatever it is that you are investing in on one side. We have the first period where prices come out of their lows. They move up for roughly 7 years, sometimes 5, sometimes 9, depending on where we are in other cycles. Also, it also depends on, let's make this even more complicated for you, also depends on the secondary factors that McWhirter talks about, such as Jupiter conjunct the North Node, etc., which can raise the business cycle slightly longer. And then we have the following factors which can depress the business curve by 10 to 20%, which are, for example, Saturn conjunct the North Node, square or opposite to it, and so on. So as the market moves up in its first 7-year bullish period, it then is faced with economic uncertainty, which they call a mid-cycle recession, a mid-cycle decline. At around this period, it also resets the 7-year cycle. So we have 7. This period comes in where we are in an uncertain period, and then 7 years is reset again, leading up to the actual top, which is 14 years later from the market low. And that is going to be entering us into a winner's curse phase, which is basically this rampant price. So we have basically this standard raising price, then we have uncertainty, then we have our standard normal raising price, and then we have this exuberant market rally. That's whether it's in stocks, property, etc. Prices then start to take off really quickly, and just consider Bitcoin as it goes through its 4-year cycle. We also face this, markets up, markets sideways, markets up, and then boom, into its peak. This is not a new concept, okay? This is just how markets work. So we have the winner's curse phase, which is roughly 2 years prior. And then what that means is that anyone who's buying in this period, and this is why you really need to understand this, because every day, there are people buying into real estate, okay? So 2024, 2025, but I'd probably even go back to say halfway through 2023, we were probably entering this winner's curse phase. And if you're inside the GAN Financial Timetable course, which I'll release in the future, or even the McWhirter program, which will get the GAN Financial Timetable course, you'll know how to time when these events are likely to activate, and you'll then be able to know when these are triggering. Because these are the time periods where you want to be selling into this period, or reducing debt levels so much that you're going to be able to withstand, or, as McWhirter would say, we want to be able to survive this crash, okay? It is no longer necessary to be wiped out on the stock market or any other market. That is a sign of ignorance of this business cycle. And then once the top's in, we then get a major crash. Now this major crash, so from basically the top out, is suggested to last 4 years. Sometimes the top can overreach, and the low can come in much sooner, such as just within a year. and sometimes the top can become a little bit earlier, and then it declines. So it can decline or be in a form of lull for around 6 years. So this is just a guide, okay? It's not an exact mathematics 774, just a guide of what can happen. Alrighty, so I'm going to bring up now the stock market and just show you where Donald Trump is right now. So what we have here is we have this basic framework mapped out, okay? So let's just minimize this. Again, market rising, stagnant, rising, winner's curse, drop. So that's basically lined out right here. Market's rising, stagnant, rising, and then drop. Now, if we use the old cycle low, which was in 2009, and we move forward to our midpoint, we would have been expecting a midpoint low around this period. So 2018 was the midpoint low from 2009. I will explain why I have moved this here shortly. We then have our orb period, which signals where we could be expecting a low. The orb period ended in January 2020. The actual low came in March 2020, so 2 months later, so slightly out. And then after it exits its lull period, market then rallies higher. It can rally higher softer to begin with, and then it goes boom, and it will just skyrocket. Okay? It'll just skyrocket higher and higher and higher. And this could just keep going on and on and on at an exorbitant rate. I don't know if I can move this anymore. No. So this could just keep going on and on and on at an exorbitant rate. And, by the end of the cycle, we could be at 45, 47, 50,000 on the Dow Jones. It could just skyrocket higher over the next 12 months. And then that takes us into our peak, which I won't give away too much here, but I'm possibly looking at end of 2025 to possibly first quarter 2026. If it doesn't peak out around there, then it'll be last quarter 2026. That's sort of the time frames I'm looking at. And the reasoning for that is inside the McWhirter program and also the GAN timetable course, which is not yet released. I just wanted to point that out, but will be coming. I have already started building it. And then the markets will collapse. Now, how far they collapse? Generally speaking, they will collapse to the 50% point of basically the cycle low to cycle top. They generally come down to the 50% point, which means you just take your range, find out wherever it stopped. So we'll just use a Fibonacci for that, for example. Fibonacci retracement, bring that up. Now let's say that the markets go up to 50,000 over the next 12 months. So that is a massive rally. Then we could be looking at prices again that were around the 28,000 mark. But it all depended on where this top was, because then it can crash up to 50%. Now 50%, for those of you who keep telling you that it's a Fibonacci number, is not true. It's basically the midway point, and it was a discovery by W.D. Gann. So just keep that in mind. It's important to know where these discoveries came from, because then you can interlink them to the further research from that same person. If you get confused as to where information is coming from, then it's going to really skew your understanding of the full concept. Okay, so 50% was a discovery by W.D. Gann, and then later on other people took it, and because it was pre-built into the Fibonacci tools, a lot of people thought that it was a Fibonacci number. It actually doesn't fit into the Fibonacci sequence at all. So there we have it. That is the rules, and that is what you are going to be looking for. So where to from here? Well, unfortunately for Mr. Trump, he has come in towards the end of the cycle. Let's go ahead and bring this up. Let's go ahead and add a new one. Alrighty. I know this looks a little bit scary, but bear with me. We're going to turn it so that Aquarius is down the bottom of the cycle to match McWhirter's chart. Alrighty. So that gives us roughly a low in Aquarius. Now, how do we confirm this? Well, we just double check and take a look at her chart here. And we have Aquarius down here. Prices are down. We're going to stick on the North Node. Alrighty, and what we can see here is the North Node is currently in Aries, and it's about to enter Pisces. So if we can see that the top of the cycle is up here, top of the business curve, it goes down to roughly normal around here, and then it falls even lower. If we line it up to her actual business curve, she's got it set up, I believe, like this. But for the purpose, I'll leave it like that, keep it simple for you. I'll correct it just for the rest of this. Alright, so that brings us from high point in the cycle down to businesses at normal conditions around here. And then from this point on, if I go back in time, so 2020, 2021, market was in Gemini. Sorry, the North Node was in Gemini. And we got to remember, we're now at business conditions are weak, okay? So this point in time, business conditions are weak as it moves through Taurus. As it moves through Aries, we are now in risk period. This is where we should be on alert for a financial collapse. Now, towards November 2025, the mean node hits 15 degrees of Pisces, okay? Now, Pisces is towards the end of the cycle, and a lot of times, towards this part, economic collapses have come in, and that's why I am sort of thinking that this time period is possibly towards the end of the cycle, and then we should be looking as it progresses through Pisces. I'm just going to bring it back in time. So as it progresses through this period and heads to the end of Aquarius, that we should be on alert for the market to collapse, and that takes us out through 2026, okay? There's some people out there that are saying that it's going to collapse in 2027, and the reason for that basically lies in the decade cycle, which I will go through in our GAN mass pressure chart course when you actually build out your forecasts. But if we were to just rely only on the North Node sequence and not overlink the decade cycle, which you have to, but I'm just trying to give you like a simple viewpoint here, then that would signal to us that we should be on alert in 2025 to the beginning of 2026. And if it progresses further, and basically this 330 degree as it moves into Aquarius would be the end of 2026. And then 2027, it moves through Aquarius, and then by 2028, it moves into Capricorn, and that should be around the low of the cycle. So that's just some food for thought. It doesn't take into any account any other planet, what any other planet is doing, especially regarding the secondary factors of the business curve, which can lift or depress this cycle. But that's just a viewpoint of mine. So that brings us to the end of this, where we actually have Donald J. Trump entering the office at the winner's curse phase, which is going to skyrocket markets higher. However, for unlucky Donald Trump, he's going to be hailed as both the best and worst president of all time. That's all I have.